Are you looking for a way to create a gold effect in Illustrator? If your answer is yes, then you're in the right place. Hi there everyone, my name is Andrei Marius. I've been working in Illustrator for over 10 years, and in this Envato Tuts Plus tutorial, I'll put my experience to use as I show you 4 ways to create a gold effect using Adobe Illustrator. For the first and easiest method, I'll show you how to put together a gold gradient. Moving to the second one, I'll show you how to further stylize the gradient using the appearance panel. For the third method, you'll learn how to apply a 3D look for your gold effect and how to add some sparkles and flares. And finally, in the fourth method, I'll show you how you can easily use a gold graphic style from Envato Elements. Speaking of Envato Elements, make sure to check it out as you will need this Robinson regular font, this logo, and this set of graphic styles. Besides these assets, with a simple subscription at Envato Elements, you can get unlimited access to millions of creative digital assets such as music, graphics, photos, fonts, and many more. You can subscribe right now with the link in the description. Let's open Illustrator to create a new document. Select pixels from this drop-down menu, set the width to 850 and the height to 600 pixels. Make sure that the color mode is set to RGB and the resolution to 300 pixels per inch, and then click this button to create your new document. Press Ctrl and minus to zoom out a bit. And before we start the work on the design, let's open all the panels which will be used throughout this tutorial. All you have to do is go to Window in the menu bar and open the Appearance panel, the Color panel, the Gradient panel, the Graphic Styles panel, the Layers panel, the Swatches panel, and don't forget the Character panel. Once you're done, select the Rectangle tool from your toolbar, select the stroke and remove the color, double-click the fill color and replace it with 79, 79 and again 79. And then just click on your artboard to create an 870 by 620 pixels shape. Keep this shape selected, switch to the selection tool, focus on the control panel and make sure that the alignment is set to artboard, and then just click these two buttons to easily center your rectangle. Now focus on the appearance panel to add a second fill for your shape. Keep it selected and apply a radial gradient using this button. Select this gradient slider, lower the opacity to 0% and then double click it to change the color mode to RGB and replace the color with 79, 79 and again 79. Move to this other gradient slider, just double click it, change the color mode to RGB and replace the color with 24, 24 and again 24. Switch to the gradient tool to adjust this gradient. Press Ctrl and minus to zoom out a bit and let's stretch the gradient like this. Squeeze it a bit like this. Stretch it a bit more and then move it up roughly like this. Once you're done, you can hold down the Ctrl key and click outside the artboard to deselect the shape. Press Ctrl and plus to zoom in. Use again the selection tool to reselect your shape and add a new fill using this same button. Keep it selected and start by replacing the gradient with black. Lower the opacity of this new fill to 30%. Change the blending mode to multiply and then go to Effect, Artistic and Film Grain. Move these sliders to 20, 0 and 10. Click OK to apply the effect. And now that you've got the background, you can go to the Layers panel and lock this shape to make sure that you will not select or move it by accident. And now continue with the text. Start by selecting the type tool from your toolbar and focus on the character panel where you will set the settings for the text that you're about to add. Select the Robinson font that you got from Envato Elements. Increase the size to 300 and the tracking to 50. And then just click on your artboard to type in golden. Press the escape key to easily switch to the selection tool. Move your text roughly in the center of the artboard. And having the text selected, let's check out the first and easiest method that you can use to create a gold effect in Adobe Illustrator. First of all, click this non-swatch from the swatches panel, which will remove the current text color. Click this Add New Fill button from the Appearance panel to add a new fill for your text. Keep this new fill selected and click the Linear Gradient button from the Gradient panel to apply a linear gradient for your text. Set the angle to 90 degrees and then focus on the gradient sliders to create your gold gradient. Let's start with the right one, so double click it and just replace the color with 242, 185 and 58. Move to the other gradient slider, double click it, increase the opacity to 100% and replace the color with 206, 151 and 40. Now click on your gradient bar to add a new gradient slider. First of all, set the location to 15% and then double click it and replace the color with 134, 91 and 17. Using the same technique, let's add 5 more gradient sliders and select them one by one, starting with this one. Set the location to 30% and then double click it to replace the color with 231, 184 and 70. Move to the next one, set the location to 40% and replace the color with 255, 236 and 122. Continue with the next one, set the location to 55% and replace the color with 231, 184 and 70. For the next one, let's set the location to 70% and replace the color with 206, 151 and 40. And finally for this one, set the location to 85% and then double click it to change the color with 255, 225 and 150. This will be your gold gradient. Feel free to make any changes and adjust the colors as you wish. And once you're happy with the end result, remember to click this new swatch button from the swatches panel to save your gradient as a swatch. Moving to the second method, make sure that your text remains selected and focus on the appearance panel as you're about to further stylize your gold gradient. Start by selecting the stroke to apply your gold gradient. Open the stroke flyer panel and increase the stroke weight to 6 points. Make sure that you check this round join button. Lower the opacity of this stroke to 25% and change the blending mode to overlay. And then go to Effect, Path and Offset Path. Set the offset to -3 pixels. Click OK to apply this effect and then click this button to add a second stroke for your text. Before we make any other adjustments, let's focus on the gradient panel to edit the applied gradient. First, just click and drag these gradients to remove them, and then select the remaining gradients one by one. Hold down the Alt key and replace the existing colors with white. Once you're done, select just these two gradients and lower the opacity to 0%. Set the angle of the gradient to 135 degrees. And then return to the appearance panel to lower the opacity of the stroke to 25%. Change the blending mode to overlay. Decrease the stroke weight to 2 points. Make sure that this round join button is still checked. And then go to Effect, Path and Offset Path. Set the offset to -1 pixel. Click OK to apply this effect and let's add one more stroke. For this one, let's remove these two gradient sliders. Drag the remaining ones to the edge of the gradient bar. Set the angle to 90 degrees and then return to the appearance panel to lower the opacity of the stroke to 75%. Change the blending mode to overlay. Decrease the stroke weight to just 1 point and go again to Effect, Path and Offset Path. Set the offset to just -0.5. Click OK to apply this effect. Select the fill and apply a new one using this same button. Change the color of this new fill to 35, 31 and 32. Lower its opacity to 40% and change the blending mode to soft light. and then go to Effect, Distort and Diffuse Glow. Move these sliders to 7, 20 and 15. Click OK to apply the effect. Make sure that you have this dark fill still selected, and this time go to Effect, Stylize and Glowing Edges. For this effect, drag the sliders to 2, 10 and 5. Click OK to apply the effect and reselect this bottom fill. Let's add some shadow effects, so go to Effect, Stylize and Drop Shadow. Change the blending mode to Soft Light, lower the opacity to 20%, set these two values to 0 and 5 pixels, lower the blur to 0, change this color to 23, 22 and again 22, click OK and OK to apply the effect, and then go one more time to Effect, Stylize and Drop Shadow to apply a second drop shadow effect. For this one, increase the opacity to 70% and the blur to 7 pixels. Click OK to apply this effect and click the type section from the top of the appearance panel to make sure that the effect which you're about to add will be applied to the entire text, not just a fill or a stroke. Let's go to Effect, Stylize and Round Corners, set the radius to 2 pixels and click OK to apply a bit of roundness to the corners of your text. Moving to the third method, make sure that your text remains selected as you're about to add a 3D look and later some sparkles and glowing effects. Let's focus on the appearance panel. Select the bottom fill and go to Effect, Restore and Transform and Transform. Drag both of these scale sliders to 99.8%. Increase the number of copies to 20. Click OK to apply the effect. Don't worry if you are getting this result. All you have to do is open this fill and drag the transform effect on top of the drop shadow effects. Now select this other fill and apply the same transform effect. This can be easily done by going to Effect and Apply Transform, or by pressing the Shift Ctrl and E keyboard shortcut. Remember to drag this transform effect on top of the other effects, and then reselect the bottom fill to add a new one on top of it. Let's replace the linear gradient that's applied on this new fill with a simpler one. Select this gradient slider, hold down the Alt key and replace the white with black. Select this other gradient slider and lower the opacity to 0%, and then return to the appearance panel to change the blending mode of this new fill to soft light, and then apply that same transform effect. Just go to Effect and Apply Transform. Return to the appearance panel and let's add one more fill using this same button. Keep this new fill selected and just apply your gold gradient. For a subtle glowing effect, let's add a new stroke for this text. Keep it selected and replace the linear gradient with a flat color. Replace it with 254, 230 and 103. Lower the opacity of the stroke to 50%. And then open the stroke flyout panel to increase the stroke width to 4 points. Make sure that you have this round join button checked, and don't forget to select profile number 2 from this list. With the stroke still selected, let's go to Effect, Path and Offset Path. Set the offset to -2 pixels. Click OK to apply this effect. Reselect the stroke and this time go to Effect, Blur and Gaussian Blur. Set the radius to 15 pixels. Click OK to apply this blur and reselect the stroke to duplicate it using this button. Select the blur effect that's applied on this new stroke and simply remove it. Open the existing offset path effect and lower the value to -1 pixel. Lower the opacity of this stroke to 25% and change the blending mode to overlay. Decrease the stroke weight to just 2 points, and that's it. For the final touches, let's see how you can add some sparkles. Select the ellipse tool from your toolbar, And just click on your artboard to create a 90 by 7 pixels shape. Click OK to create this new shape. Press Ctrl and plus a few times to zoom in on this new shape. Remove the stroke color. Select the fill and replace this linear gradient with a simpler one. And then focus on the gradient sliders. Start with this one, set the location to 50%. Double click it and replace the color with 254, 235 and 79. Move to this other gradient slider, double click it, lower the opacity to 0% and replace the color with 231, 184 and 70. Now hold down the Alt key and drag a copy of this slider. Move it to the right edge of this gradient bar. Set the angle to 0 degrees and then go to Effect, Blur and Gaussian Blur. Set the radius to 7 pixels. Click OK to apply this effect. And before we continue, select the anchor point tool from your toolbar and click these 2 points to turn them into sharp points. Reselect the ellipse tool and use it to create a 30 by 3 pixels shape. Focus on the gradient panel. Select this gradient slider and replace the color with white. Double click this one, replace the color with 254, 235 and 79. Double click the color code and press Ctrl C to copy it. And then double click this other gradient slider. Again double click the color code and press Ctrl V to paste your copied code. Go to Effect and apply Gaussian Blur effect to apply that same 7 pixels Gaussian Blur effect that you used for this shape. And then click again on your artboard to create a 50 by 1 pixel shape. Keep this linear gradient, but change the blending mode of this shape to soft light. Once you're done, click again on your artboard and this time create a 40 by 11 pixels shape. For the beginning, focus on the gradient panel, double click this gradient slider, lower the opacity to 50% and replace the color with 254, 244 and 163. Move to the appearance panel, lower the opacity of this fill to 50%, change the blending mode to overlay and then apply that same Gaussian blur effect. Make sure that your fill is selected and duplicate it. Select the blur effect that's applied for this copy and remove it. And then select the entire path and go to Effect, Restore and Transform and Pucker and Bloat. Drag the slider to -90%. Click OK to apply the effect and click one more time on your artboard to create a 10 by 7 pixels shape. Fill it with white, lower the opacity to 75% and change the blending mode to soft light, and then apply that same pucker and bloat effect. Now that you have all these shapes, you can use the selection tool to select them all, align them using these buttons, and then press Ctrl G to group them. Deselect this group, press Ctrl and 0 to zoom back on your entire design, and reselect this group. Let's rotate it and drag it on top of the first letter from your text. Now hold down the Alt key and drag a copy of this group on top of the second letter from your text, and repeat this technique to add a copy for each letter from your text until you end up with something that's somewhat similar with this. Once you're done, reselect the ellipse tool from your toolbar and use it to create a 500 by 20 pixels shape. Use the selection tool to move this shape roughly in this position. Keep it selected and focus on the gradient panel. Make sure that you have these settings for the left and right gradient sliders. And then double click the middle one, keep the opacity at 50% and replace the color with 243, 192 and 87. Move to the appearance panel, select this fill and go to Effect, Blur and Gaussian Blur. Increase the radius to 60 pixels, click OK to apply this effect and then add a new fill for this shape. Double click this gradient color and replace the color with 254, 230 and 103. Change the blending mode of this fill to overlay and then go to effect, path and offset path. Set the offset to -5 pixels, click OK, reselect this fill and go to effect, blur and Gaussian blur. Lower the radius to 15 pixels, click OK to apply the effect and then add one more fill for this shape. For this one, let's replace the gradient color with white. Lower the opacity of this fill to 50% and change the blending mode to overlay. And then go to effect, path and offset path. Set the offset to -8 pixels, click OK to apply the effect, reselect this fill, and this time go to effect, blur and Gaussian blur. Set the radius to just 5 pixels, click OK to apply this blur effect, and this will be your final 3D gold effect. Now that you've got your gold effect, let's save it as a graphic style so that you can easily apply it on other elements from your design. All you have to do is select your text and click this button from the graphic styles panel to save all the appearance settings that make up your gold effect as a graphic style. Once saved, you're just one click away from applying your gold effect on other elements from your design. We'll use this logo from Envato Elements to exemplify the magic of graphic styles. All you have to do is select the objects that you wish to adjust and simply click your graphic style. In some cases, you might have to make some small adjustments to make the effect work for your design. In this case, I decided to disable this round corners effect. Speaking of graphic styles, you can always try different graphic styles that someone else created for you. Looking through the add-ons section from Envato Elements, you will find plenty of alternatives. Let's try this one, just download it and return to your document. Now to get access to those graphic styles, all you have to do is open the flyout menu from the graphic styles panel, go to Open Graphic Style Library and Other Library. Find the file that you got from Envato Elements and double click it to open this window where you will get access to all the available graphic styles. Select the objects that you wish to edit and simply click the desired graphic style. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Remember to hit that like button as it helps me know that I did a good job. Subscribe if you aren't already and don't forget to click the little bell icon to be notified of any new tutorials. I'm Andrei Marius and I'll see you in the next video.